Evelyn stares at her silent phone. 6 months, not a single word from her daughter. All because of one helpful phone call she can't take back. She thought advice was love, until a note hidden in an old cookbook revealed the truth her daughter never said aloud. What if the very habit meant to protect your family is the one silently tearing it apart? Stay with me, because every parent over 60 needs to hear what Evelyn finally discovered. I only meant to help. That's what Evelyn said, barely above a whisper, as she folded the same tea towel she'd folded for years, out of habit more than need. The sun had already dipped below the neighbor's roofline in Parma, Ohio, casting long golden shadows across her kitchen floor. The kind of light that makes old memories feel sharper than yesterday. She'd spent her whole life doing what she thought was right. Paying bills on time. Organizing her daughter's wedding down to the last folded napkin. Sending just checking in texts every Sunday evening without fail. But now, her daughter hadn't responded in 6 months. Not since the last phone call ended in static and silence. Evelyn still replayed it in her head, line by line. It wasn't an argument, not really. It was more like a crack that had finally split the floor open after years of quiet pressure. All she said was, "I don't think it's wise for you to refinance again," with that same tone she'd always used. Calm, practical, loving, she thought. And her daughter? Rachel's voice had turned sharp in an instant. "Mom, I didn't ask for advice. I told you because I trusted you." That was the last thing she heard before the line went dead. And since then, nothing. Not on her birthday. Not after Evelyn sent a handwritten letter in the mail. Not even a seen notification on that Facebook message. If this already hits home, give this video a like. It helps others find it too, and maybe, just maybe, it'll reach someone who needs to hear it most. The strange thing is, Evelyn never felt like she was overstepping. To her, guidance was love. She grew up in a world where mothers gave advice and daughters listened. Maybe rolled their eyes, but listened. She thought they were fine. Until they weren't. And the silence that followed didn't sound angry, it sounded final. Each morning she still brewed 2 cups of coffee, even though only one was ever touched. The second cup sat quietly on the kitchen table, growing cold by the hour. In case she visits, Evelyn would joke to her neighbor, but deep down she wasn't joking. The truth is, Evelyn had no idea how much she was holding on until everything fell apart. She'd wrapped her love around advice, around planning, around control. It felt like caring. It felt like protection. But to Rachel, it must have felt like something else entirely. That's the hardest part about getting older. You spend so long being the caretaker, the planner, the anchor. You forget how easily those same things can feel like weights to someone trying to grow their own wings. And now, sitting in her quiet living room with the old clock ticking too loud and the photo of Rachel as a little girl smiling back at her from the mantel, Evelyn wonders, was it really just one phone call that broke them? Or was it 100 tiny moments before that, all stitched together by good intentions and missed signals? Comment if you've ever felt this kind of silence too. The kind that doesn't shout but echoes in every corner of your day. Evelyn still keeps a bag of Rachel's favorite peppermint candies in the pantry, even though no one eats them anymore. She still leaves her phone on loud even at night, just in case. But no one tells you how to move forward when the past feels unfinished. She didn't set out to push anyone away. She only wanted to help. That's the part that stings the most. Sometimes the deepest pain isn't caused by what we did, but by what we meant to do. And for Evelyn, the quiet is the hardest part. Subscribe if you believe no senior should ever go unseen, unheard, or misunderstood. Because someone out there needs to know they're not alone in this silence. And someone else might be the one who needs to hear this before it's too late. Evelyn didn't always notice how often she repeated herself. How's your gas bill this month? Did you check your credit card interest rate again? Do you want me to come with you to the bank? To her, those were just ways to show she cared. Real love was in the details, staying one step ahead so Rachel wouldn't have to struggle. That's how her own mother showed it after all. Quiet guidance, unspoken worry, a reminder at just the right moment. But somewhere along the way, Evelyn's help started to sound more like surveillance. She only realized this the day her neighbor, widowed just 2 years earlier, sighed during their weekly grocery trip and said, "You know what I miss most? Being trusted to mess up once in a while without someone hovering." That stopped Evelyn in her tracks. She never thought about it that way. Trusting someone, even to fail a little, could that be a kind of love too? Because maybe Rachel didn't need reminders. Maybe she needed faith. And yet, Evelyn couldn't shake the fear. Not after watching her best friend lose her retirement savings to a careless son-in-law. Not after hearing about neighbors scam through online shopping and bogus health plans. The world felt full of pitfalls, and Evelyn's instinct was to shield her daughter from every one of them. She thought Rachel should be grateful for the protection. But what she really wanted was independence. One afternoon, Evelyn caught herself rewriting the grocery list Rachel had left on the counter, changing organic cereal to the cheaper brand, scratching out ice cream, and adding canned beans. She didn't mean to be condescending. It was just how she thought. Practical. Responsible. But what does it mean to always assume your way is better? What if love turns into a quiet kind of control, when it starts to take the shape of crossed-out lines, corrected decisions, and silence that fills in all the space someone else is trying to grow in? Looking back, Evelyn remembers little moments like that. Rachel pausing before sharing news. The slight hesitation in her voice during calls. The way she'd sometimes joke, "Should I run this by you first, Mom?" They didn't feel like red flags at the time. Just passing remarks. But now they haunt Evelyn in the stillness. Looking back, everyone says the same thing. The signs were there. They just didn't feel like signs at the time. Even at church there was that sermon, the one about well-meaning harm. When the pastor spoke about how love can sometimes disguise itself in fear and worry. Evelyn remembered sinking just a bit deeper into the pew, clutching her purse with both hands, suddenly unsure if that sermon had been written for her. She thought of her own mother then, a woman who never once asked what Evelyn wanted, only what she needed to do. And Evelyn had followed the rules. She got the degree, married the right man, raised Rachel with the same iron thread of concern twisted neatly into love. But she never once thought to ask Rachel if that's what she wanted. Comment if you've ever been in that strange place between wanting to help and realizing you might be holding on too tight. The hardest part about getting older is realizing how much of your identity was wrapped up in being needed. And when that shifts, when the calls stop, the roles reverse, and the advice goes unanswered, it can feel like losing your place in the world. Evelyn never meant to smother. She just didn't know how to stop giving the only way she knew how. And now, she wonders if her silence is a punishment or a message. One she's only just beginning to understand. There was a time when Rachel used to call just to ask about Evelyn's roses. Or ask for her chili recipe for the third time. Even though I should have memorized it by now, she'd laugh. But now even the garden feels quieter. Evelyn still waters those roses every other morning, as if tending them will somehow reopen the door. Sometimes she swears the blooms lean a little heavier toward the porch, almost like they're waiting too. And deep down, Evelyn is beginning to ask herself a question she never had the courage to face. Did I love my daughter, or did I try to shape her? It's a question many seniors never ask aloud, because it sounds too much like regret. But maybe, just maybe, it's the beginning of something else. Something honest. Something humble. Something that could still heal what was lost. If you're still watching and something in this story is stirring your heart, please share this video. Someone you know might be caught in the same silence, and they don't even realize it yet. It had been nearly 8 months since Rachel's voice last filled Evelyn's kitchen. 8 long months of second-guessing herself, checking her phone, listening to the answering machine just in case the beep came back to life. Evelyn had just finished folding the laundry when she pulled out an old, stained cookbook from the cabinet. The one she gifted Rachel years ago with her mother's recipes tucked in between the pages. A burst of nostalgia had pulled her to it. Something about the comfort of handwritten soup instructions felt safer than silence. As she flipped through the dog-eared pages, a folded note slipped out, delicate like it hadn't seen the light in years. It wasn't one of the original recipes. It was Rachel's handwriting. Evelyn froze. It simply said, "I wish you trusted that I'd figure life out on my own." That's all it took. A 10-word note buried between chicken casserole and pear preserves, and suddenly, every memory shifted. Every time she checked in, every time she double-checked the math on Rachel's rent or told her what she would do, it hadn't been seen as support. It had been seen as doubt. Not because Evelyn didn't love Rachel, but because Evelyn hadn't let go of the belief that love had to be taught, step by step, decision by decision, like a rule book. That note hit her like a winter gust through an open window. No warning, just truth. She sank into the dining chair, note still in hand, and whispered, "I didn't know. I didn't know you felt that way." But maybe she did. Deep down, maybe that's why she always talked at Rachel instead of with her. Why she offered solutions before her daughter even finished the sentence. It was fear. That's what it had always been. Fear that her daughter would stumble. Fear that the world was too harsh. Fear that Evelyn would become invisible once she stopped being the one everyone turned to. What no one tells you about getting older is this. You can spend your whole life building a family, and still not know how to stand beside them when they no longer need your tools. That was the real shift. That was the fracture that Evelyn could finally see now. Not a dramatic event, not a betrayal, but the quiet erosion of trust. And Evelyn realized something else, something painful but true. She had never said, "I believe in you." Not outright. Not without conditions. She had given Rachel love, advice, structure, but not belief. And without belief, even love can feel like a burden. The days that followed were quiet. But they weren't empty. Evelyn began walking slower through the house, noticing things she'd once rushed past. The faded crayon marks on the door frame from when Rachel was 7, the barely their scent of lilac from an old sweater that still hung in the back of the closet. She began to see how tightly she had clung to her role as the fixer, the rescuer, the provider. She wore that identity like armor, afraid that without it she'd disappear. But what if she didn't have to do anything to be loved? What if she could just be Evelyn? That was the hardest part. The part no one tells you about aging. Sometimes to keep your family close, you have to stop reaching for their hands and start trusting they'll come back to you on their own. And maybe they won't. Maybe they'll take longer than you hoped. Maybe they'll never say the words you crave. But letting go, real letting go, isn't giving up. It's choosing peace over control. Evelyn sat on the porch that afternoon, note still folded in her hand, and watched the wind curl through the roses like a quiet ribbon. She didn't cry. She didn't speak. She just breathed. For the first time in months, she let the silence be what it was. Not punishment, not failure, but space. The same space she never gave Rachel, but now finally understood. If this moment speaks to something deep in you, something you've been carrying quietly, please subscribe. Because no senior should feel alone in these invisible battles. Not now. Not ever. We're all still learning how to let go and love better. Sometimes, the hardest truths are the ones folded between the pages of the life we thought we had figured out. But they're also the ones that set us free. Evelyn always believed she had made peace with her past. Her mother had been strict, stoic, the kind of woman who ironed socks and labeled leftovers. Order is love, she used to say, and Evelyn believed it. For decades she lived by it. But now, sitting alone with that folded note from Rachel, Evelyn began to see it differently. Because what if love wasn't about holding everything together? What if the real inheritance wasn't the casserole recipe or the bank book, but the unspoken belief that control equals care? She could remember so clearly, age 10, sitting at the kitchen table reaching for the last cookie. Her mother's hand caught hers midair. You already had one, Evelyn. Don't be greedy. No softness. Just a rule. And that rule became Evelyn's rhythm. She raised Rachel with warmth, yes, but also with rules, routines, warnings. She thought she'd broken the mold by being more affectionate. But she hadn't broken the blueprint, just repainted it. The truth was, she never questioned the deeper lesson underneath all the routines. That love meant protecting people from their own choices, even if it meant removing their voice from the room. And now, decades later, Evelyn was finally asking herself, when did helping become hiding her own fear of being left behind? That's the part no one sees in these stories. The invisible threads passed down through generations, not just of behavior but of belief. It's easy to say times were different, but some things don't change. Like the ache to be needed, the quiet panic when the phone stops ringing, the whisper in your heart that asks, if they don't need me, will they still love me? Evelyn had spent so much time trying to be the glue in everyone's life, she never asked whether anyone actually wanted to be glued. She didn't mean to control. She just didn't know another way to show she cared. And now, the silence was teaching her the language she never learned. The language of space, of trust, of restraint, of letting someone fall and not rushing to catch them, because maybe that fall is what they need. At a senior book club a few weeks later, a woman named Doris read a poem aloud. It was about dandelions, how children blow on them to make wishes, and mothers see them as weeds to pull out of the garden. The line that stuck with Evelyn was this: what you call a mess may be someone else's freedom. That night, Evelyn sat by her window and cried for the first time in months. Not out of guilt, but release. She wasn't angry anymore. Not at Rachel. Not at herself. Not even at her mother. Because now she understood something sacred. Every woman in her line had done the best they could with what they had. But maybe she could be the one to set down the armor. She didn't have to fix it. She didn't have to be right. She didn't even have to be forgiven. She just had to be honest enough to grow, right here, right now. There's a strange kind of peace that comes with that realization. The kind that wraps around your shoulders like a quilt you didn't know was missing. If you've ever inherited a pattern you didn't ask for, a habit you never questioned, you're not alone. And if this story touches something you can't quite name, share it with someone. Sometimes just passing it on says the thing we can't say out loud. We're all still learning, still unlearning, still becoming. Even at 72. Even when the house is quiet. Even when the porch light flickers and no one's come by in days. Sometimes the wisdom we need most isn't in what we teach. It's in what we're finally willing to see. The porch light still comes on at 6. Evelyn says she doesn't do it out of hope anymore. Not exactly. It's more like a habit of the heart. A quiet ritual. Like setting one extra place at the table just in case Grace decides to stop by. She stopped rewriting the past. Stopped trying to make the phone ring with sheer will. Stopped rehearsing the perfect apology or the perfect reason why Rachel should finally forgive her. Because maybe the truth isn't about fixing what's broken. It's about holding the door open anyway. Evelyn still remembers the last words they shared. Sharp, bitter, both of them tired and afraid and not saying what they really meant. But what she carries now isn't just regret. It's something gentler. A kind of wisdom that only shows up when you're ready to listen without defending. She used to fill the silence with advice. Now she's learning how to simply be present with the quiet. Sometimes on her walks she sees younger families passing by. Moms juggling groceries, toddlers tugging at sleeves, teens walking 5 paces ahead. It used to make her ache. Now it makes her smile. Because she finally understands. Every generation is just doing their best with what they know. And every parent, whether they admit it or not, is just trying not to be forgotten. She no longer writes long letters full of solutions. These days she sends short postcards instead. A memory. A recipe. A favorite flower she saw that reminded her of Rachel's wedding bouquet. No expectations. Just love, lightly held. And maybe that's the real lesson here. That at some point, Love has to stop gripping so tight and start trusting the people we raise to find their own way. You can still cheer from the sidelines. You can still set the porch light, but you don't have to run the whole race for them. Evelyn says she's still becoming, still learning how to be less of a map and more of a lighthouse. And sometimes that's all we're called to be. A steady glow, a quiet warmth, a reminder that home is still here, even if no one pulls into the driveway tonight. So if you're watching this and your heart feels heavy, if there's someone you miss but don't know how to reach, if you've been strong for too long and just need to let go, then hear this. You are not alone. You are not broken. You are not too late. The door can still open. The light can still shine. And the love you thought was lost might still be looking for a way home. Don't let your need to be right bury your chance to be close. That's what Evelyn told her neighbor just last week. Not as advice, just as a truth she earned the long way. And if that's all you take from this story, maybe that's enough. If this moved something inside you, let us know in the comments. Share this video with someone who might be carrying the same quiet ache. And subscribe if you want more stories that remind you, you matter, your story matters, and you're never too old to begin again. Her porch light still flickers on at 6. And even if no one knocks tonight, she'll be there. Just listening. Just waiting. Not with answers. Just with love.
Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. It truly means a lot. If you found this video helpful or inspiring, please give it a thumbs up. Share it with a friend or loved one who might benefit. And leave a comment below. We love hearing your thoughts and experiences. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on our latest tips and uplifting advice for living your best life at any age. Now, if you're ready for more wisdom and encouragement, just click the video that's on your screen right now. It's packed with even more insights made just for you. Take care, stay positive, and we'll see you in the next one.